everyone. Welcome to Season 2, Episode 6 of the Women of Rock Oral History Project podcast. I'm very excited about my guest this week, the one and only Frances McKee from the Vaselines. Frances is the second Scot I have interviewed. We're kind of all over the place in this interview since I've been doing them on Zoom. You know, we end up just like having conversations about random things and the pandemic. And so this interview actually starts with one of my favorite topics, astrology. We talk about our astrological signs, and Frances is currently a yoga instructor and is taking an astrology class. So we talk about that for a few minutes before we dive into the meat and potatoes. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this interview with Frances McKee. Well, nice to meet you. Yeah, I figured I kept frantically looking at because I keep like talking to people in the UK. I'm like, what time is it there? Did I do like
sorry. I've just, do you know, this is the first, it's so fortuitous. I have worked on a Tuesday evening for about 25 years, and this is the first night that I haven't worked, and I'm basking in the freedom, and it's been a really lovely day, and I've been to the shops, and I've been sitting outside, and I'm supposed to be starting an astrology course. I'm starting to read some books. I know.
Oh, no, I'm a big fan of astrology to the point that like people make fun of me. Yeah.
I tell you, on tour, you should hear, you know, they go on and on how crap it is. But you know how I've been studying it for about 20 years actually, but I did a sort of a psychological astrology course last year. And it was just a year, but it was good. It was actually just a lot of stuff that I already knew. And then they moved it on into a diploma, and I got accepted to do it. So I was really excited. So I've bought all these books on Carl Jung and sitting looking at it going, God, what have we done?
Well, I can't take a yoga class with you because I'm too far away, but maybe if you do like online astrology courses.
Well, that's what I did, because you know what? I really need to practice with them. You know, with the different charts. Can't even get the word out, but yeah, exactly.
No,
so what do you like about it? Do you study it, or are you just kind of
I don't I probably would if I wasn't such a jack. I'm I'm just so busy. I'm like, I can't delve into that too deeply.
Well, that's funny you said that, because you know, I'm a jack of all trades person. I mean, I get too bored, but I really like, you know, I've got obviously interested in yoga and astrology, or probably and I trained as a naturopath, so at least the music gets relegated.
Yep. Well, I know that I have that as one of the interview questions too. I'm like, where does that fit into all of these? It doesn't. Wait, what's your sun, moon, and ascendant?
So sun in Cancer, moon in Pisces, ascendant in Taurus, thank God.
Yeah, I know. I was like, oh no.
I think I would just float away. And luckily my MC is in Capricorn. Otherwise, I think, you know, when I realized that, and funnily enough, two of my kids are Taurian. So I think that Earth is I love it. I love it so much because it's the thing. Otherwise, you know, I would float away.
Yeah.
What about you?
I say the same thing about myself, but I'm all air. So I'm a Gemini sun, Aquarius moon, but I have the Capricorn ascendant, but everything else is like Gemini, Libra. But so I think the Capricorn kind of saves me. Yeah.
Exactly. And
I realized Mars and Taurus.
I think that's good. You must get stuff done. You must get stuff started and stuff finished.
Yeah. Work all the time. Yeah, I do finish some things. Jack of all trades, but like things I get really obsessed with, I can stick it out and like
that.
Yeah.
That sounds good. I when I saw that I had Capricorn on my MC, I was like, no way. But actually it's brilliant. And that's why I've got a yoga studio and, you know, things that I built, you know, that kind of thing. So
okay, well, I'm excited to talk to you because I did not know that you had children either.
Oh wow.
I had no idea. Yeah. And
3 of them, stupidly.
you have 3 kids?
Yes.
How old are they now?
My eldest is 20. He's just left, and I've got an 18-year-old and a 16-year-old.
Okay, interesting. Are you married?
I'm still married, but we separated a long time ago.
Oh,
and, my new partner, well, not new, we've been together for a long time. He's like, when are you ever going to get divorced? I'm like, well, I'll get around to it sometime. It really pisses him off.
Yeah. I mean, but if you're not gonna like get married again, I don't know. I don't get it. I just think if it works.
Have you got kids?
No, I'm a lesbian spinster.
Brilliant.
What I call myself. Yeah. So I adopt old dogs.
Can I just say a pretty hot lesbian spinster?
Holy shit, Frances. Oh my God. Okay. That's probably gonna be my like trailer for this interview. Oh thank you. Frances from the Vaselines said I'm a hot lesbian spinster. Okay. You just made my day. Earlier today I talked to Marianne Faithfull.
Oh wow.
Right? Had to get off the phone because, I'm sorry, Marianne Faithfull. I have to talk to Frances McKee, one of my other favorite musicians of my favorite bands. Just like hard life over here. Just
oh my God. So Marianne Faithfull, I'll tell you a story. I never met her, but Eugene met her. But he played I can't remember where. It was at a gig, and there was an after party, and Eugene ended up sitting beside her, and she said, I like your music, very funky.
Yeah, she did know who you were. She was like, oh, Mom. Yeah, so she remembers.
She don't think she was pretending. Marianne Faithfull knows. Well, you've made my day. That's incredible.
Yeah. Oh my God. No, it's not usually like this. It's usually pretty boring. And then I do like cool interviews periodically a few times a month and make the day. But yeah, so this is kind of like, they're all pretty much the same format. I jokingly say it's like, this is your life. So start from like growing up to present day. I don't do like a discography. It's kind of, I ask open-ended questions and it's like self-guided. So whatever you feel is most important, but it's really just a conversation. I wouldn't say it's like a typical interview. So, you know, it's pretty fun. And I'm not rushing you, but because you were late, Frances, I am in a little bit of a rush.
So sorry. I am such a particular timekeeper. Except with my family. And then I go into sort of family mode and I try to be on time and end up really late with them all the time because they expect it. So
no, normally I wouldn't care.
We can trundle along.
Okay. Quickly. I have to pick my car up from the mechanic before they kick me out. So, but usually I have like nothing to do. So yeah, so I just want to start at the beginning. Obviously you did not grow up in the United States. Where did you grow up?
In Glasgow, Scotland, a pretty working class area of Glasgow, and I'm one of 5 children, so I'm a twin. So so you know, it's typical growing up, born 66, so you know, lived in a young life in the 70s and 80s.
What did your parents do? What did your parents do for a living?
My mom was an eternal liar and my dad was an alcoholic. So plenty of recipes in there for good music. Yeah.
So so that's, I don't think anyone's ever answered that.
They're both dead, so I can say that now.
All right, cool. So would you say like, or actually first, what was your relationship like with your siblings?
So twin sister, it was, you know, we fought a lot, but we also were very, very close. We had an older brother, he's died now, but he he tormented the living bejeevers out of us. And it was okay if Anne, that's my twin, if we were aligned together, it was fine. But if she aligned with my brother, it was chaos. And yeah, always screaming at each other. I had an older sister who was 8 years older. She kept a sort of distance from us. We were just crazy, fighting all the time. And then I have a younger sister who's 8 years younger than me, and she was the baby. So we all kind of looked after her.
Okay. So you guys are pretty like spread apart.
Yeah, good Catholic family upbringing.
Yeah. And just what was it like growing up in your household? I mean, it sounds like maybe kind of chaotic.
Yeah, I used to hide in the wardrobe.
Yeah.
That was my hangout. I used to just climb into the wardrobe and just stay there for hours on end. And then later on, so I obviously liked to escape.
Yeah.
And then I learned, my aunt taught me how to knit and sew. So I used to busy myself and blank out the rest of the family.
Yep. That's fun. I can identify with that too. I used to call it zoning out.
Yeah.
I could like make myself, if I just sat somewhere long enough, like go somewhere else. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't know if that's healthy or not, but it was fine.
I love that wardrobe.
Yeah, it's fine at the time. So I think usually I ask, was creativity something that was encouraged in your household? No, but it doesn't.
Never. We had a piano, weirdly. And one day, I think I told the story in another podcast, but one day, and I would sort of tinker on it. I just like playing the notes, like the sound it made. Obviously annoyed my parents, because one day I came home and there was no piano. And I said, what's happened to the piano? Oh, nobody used it. It was just gathering dust. So we just chopped it up, threw it away.
Oh, God, that's depressing.
So, no, we weren't really encouraged to do anything. My dad did like music, so if he got drunk on a Saturday night, he would put on his Glenn Daly records and have a wee dance around. So music was there. I remember listening to the Old Rugged Cross. I don't know if you've ever had the misfortune to hear that song. It's bleak. Lena Martell's version is particularly bleak. So my mum and dad used to sort of blare that out every now and then. And Old Shep, which is a really sad song about a dog who dies. That was often played.
I know that one. Yeah. That's pleasant.
Happy days.
Yeah. Happy times. So would you say that is like your first musical memory, or was there anything before?
Yeah, I would say so, actually. My dad did teach us to sort of waltz a little bit. He would put on these records and on a Saturday night, as I said. And I remember this really, really clearly, though. There was my gran had a New Year's party and I was hiding under the table, and then noticed that everyone would take a turn to sing. And then my dad sang. And I remember being really taken aback by that, actually. Watching all these people take a turn, sort of thing.
Did you take a turn?
No, I was under the table. No. Well, before you're not drunk, just hiding under the table.
Yeah, from the wardrobe to under the table.
Yeah.
And what kind of kid were you in school? Like, what kind of student were you? What were you like with your peers?
Quite shy. And actually, when Anne and I were young, my twin and I would do all the talking. And I think as we got older, that reversed, and I would let her do all the talking. But I quite liked school. I quite liked the order of it. It's my MC in Capricorn. I quite liked that. And when I was old enough, I really made a concerted effort to study and to work at school. I enjoyed the discipline of it, because there was no discipline at home. Yeah. So it was just one place that I could just really be focused. So I quite liked it.
It was like you doing well in school. Was that something that was important to your parents, or going?
Well, not at all.
Not at all.
They were surprised. They were simply surprised that in Scotland you get your O grades, and I remember my dad giving me £10 because I had done so well, And that was a big deal. My dad, you know, giving me money, and he was just like, "Oh, I'm really proud of you." So, that was a nice day.
Yeah. Did you plan on continuing your education after like high school?
Yeah. Well, I was when I was about 14. I joined a drama group, and that was like that was like opening the door, Alice in Wonderland. And I was, funnily enough, I started to do drama at school and secondary school, and I still see my drama teacher. She lives in Glasgow, and I saw her the other week, and I said, you know, you didn't know this at the time, but you probably saved my life, because I would go to her room and we would just, you know, be in this wee drama group. But I really thought I would go into acting. I loved it so much. And I was part of this Dolphin Art Centre, and that's where I met Douglas from the BMX Bandits and Sean and Norman. And we just had this amazing time. So amazing that you don't realise at the time that you're having this amazing time. And then I met Eugene, who was also really interested in acting. And we really, really thought that's what we would do. And then when I left school, I could have applied to drama school, but I didn't. Something just was like, you're not good enough, you can't do this. So that wee voice, that, you know, that doubting voice, because it wasn't like my parents were like, yeah, go ahead. You know, in the 80s, if somebody said, what do you want to do? You wouldn't say, oh, I'm going to be an actress.
Yeah.
You know, you just wouldn't say that. You know, like, who the hell do you think you are? Yeah. So I had that in the back of my mind, you know, that sort of working class. Who do you think you are? So I ended up applying for teacher training college for university, and spent 4 years doing something I completely hated. And then another 7 years actually being a school teacher, which I hated. Wow. Yeah.
And well, going back a little bit, all of the friends that you met in drama school, what was your very first band, or when did you like decide?
All right. So Douglas used to live outside Glasgow, and he said, oh, we went round to his place, and Norman and Sean, everyone there, and they said, we're going to do this gig in the park. And I was like, oh, wow, right, we'll just come along, I'll tap a tambourine or something. At this point, I was told I couldn't sing. So everyone, like that thing I was saying, everyone started to sing a song. And then they said, oh, Frances, will you sing a song? And I was like, oh, I can't sing. Yeah. But I pulled from the remnants of my memory this song called Twigwig that I sang at school. And they all loved it. You know, everyone in the band loved it. And Norman put the music to it, because I just sang it a cappella, although I didn't even know what that word meant at the time. And then we all joined this, we put this band together called the Child Molesters. And I would sing this song, and everyone just really loved it. And I really liked singing it. And then one day Douglas phoned me up and he was like, we have to change the name of the band. And I was like, but why? It's a really good name. And he's like, oh no, it's a terrible name. And, you know, there was people boycotting the gigs that we were doing because of the name. It's all oblivious to me. I just thought it was really funny. And he said he was going to change the name to the Pretty Flowers. And I was like, I'm out. I don't want to be a pretty flower. I want to be a child molester. I know it's not good, but so then usually I'd met Eugene by that time, and he was like, you know, he was in a band. He's like, I'd quite like to leave that band, and I don't really know what I want to do, but I'd really like to be in a band with you. And I was like, well, that's great. I can't sing, but if I'm going to be in a band, I want to learn to play an instrument. And so a few attempts at playing guitar, and you know, I could just about play 3 chords. And that's how we built all the Vaselines songs, on my inability to play. And I was like, look, and it was Eugene as well. He's like, if we're going to do this, it'll be 50-50. But me and you on stage. I didn't want to be the girl in the back doing the backing vocals, and he didn't want that either. So we had this sort of romantic idea of Sonny and Cher or something like that. But I was shit scared to do it. So I was like, I need something to hold and something to do. And so, yeah, I learned to play 3 chords. And that's what gave the Vaselines the sound. That's why it sounds so nursery rhymey and catchy, because well, if he ventured into a C chord, I would go nuts, but you know, there are some C's.
Yeah, there's some. Yeah.
You would never find a minor chord in a Vaseline song. In fact, even I don't think we've ever played a minor chord in a Vaseline song. Maybe No Hope and Dum Dum, but yeah.
Oh, I love
rare.
No Hope though. Yeah, that's one of my
Yeah,
favorites.
it's one of my favorites actually.
I love that song. So, okay, so you told me when you met Eugene, were you guys, so I didn't even know this until I was much older, but you were dating and decided to be in a band together?
Yes, well, I used to see, so I was at an all-girls school,
Mm-hmm.
and Eugene was at an all-boys school, and I used to get the bus to school, and I used to see this guy on the bus. I was like, oh, he's nice. And then I used to just see him on the bus and sort of see him from afar, and like, he's nice. And then one night I went out to see a play, and I was getting the bus home, and sitting on the bus at night was this Eugene. I didn't know his name or anything, but he was beside a girl that was in my class at school. And she got off the bus, and I was like, oh, here's my chance. But he got off afterwards, and you know, they both got off the bus, and I was like, oh, well, that's it. And this girl was really popular at school, and I was like, and you know, I was, you know, not popular, you know, I just, yeah, just a bit gawky looking as you are at that age. And I thought, well, there's no chance. And then I don't know what happened. One night I went to a party, and Eugene was at this party with his brother. His brother was much older and far more attractive in the sense of older and whatever, but it wasn't him. Apparently said to Eugene, because I was with my twin sister, apparently said to Eugene, I'll go for the wee one, which was me. And Eugene was like, no, I'm going for the wee one. So we had this really sort of encounter at this party, and then he's really shy, I'm really shy. So it took a few months for anything to really happen. And eventually I remember walking home one day, late afternoon, and it's all about buses. And then I saw a bus went past, and then I heard someone shout on me, and it turned out it was Eugene, and he sort of ran over me. Oh, I haven't seen you for ages. I jumped off the bus. I saw you walking. Where are you going? I said, I'm walking home. And he said, well, I'm in a play, and I'm going to do it, but we really need to meet up sometime. And I was like, okay.
Very romantic story.
Very romantic, yeah.
And so then you formed the Vaseline.
We were going to not form a band. We were actually going to write a fanzine, which we never got around to doing. And then Eugene he said, oh, I've got a friend that's got a wee 4-track, and I've got these songs. Let's see if we can record them. So those 3 songs were Son of a Gun, something else I can't remember, and Rory, I think. No, can't remember. But Son of a Gun was there. So we made this wee sort of demo tape, and then Eugene gave it to Stephen Pastoral, because then we would all go to the pub, and he really liked it, and he said, oh, I think you should record that EP. So, you know, it just all happened in a, you know, like that. It was just like, oh, you can make records, and, you know, and I think at that point, you know, the sort of the scene had started in Glasgow. There was, you know, Primal Scream, the Jesus and Mary chain really started it off, and you know, you saw those bands, and it was like, oh God, these are just people that live down the road from us. And suddenly making music became something that was possible, not impossible. So we didn't have this master plan or anything like that. In fact, we didn't have any plan. And I was still trying to learn to play the instrument anyway. But we would Eugene would come around, and we would just, he was really good at starting a song, and I was really good at finishing it. So it was a great combination. Yeah. So I remember coming around, and it was like that, oh, I really like this. It was Molly's Lips, and I was like, oh, that's really hard to play. And he had the verse, and he was kind of going with it. And then we had this absolute fascination for this woman called Molly Weir, who used to tell tea time tales. And it was a really Scottish woman, and we had this sort of weird I don't know why, because it was just really boring, but we were obsessed by her.
Yeah.
So then I came up with the lyric "Kiss, Kiss Molly's Lips," and it was like, oh my God, that just all fits in.
Yeah.
And, you know, Rory was about my bike that I would ride to college. And, you know, it was all the songs were really tales of our life, really, which was actually quite boring. And, you know, The Day I Was a Horse was built around the fact that we all took acid and then went on a ferry to this little island just off the west coast of Scotland, tiny wee island. And then we sat in a bus shelter, another bus, for about 5 hours because we were sort of glued to the spot.
Yeah.
And I remember going back to this wee island, Millport. I remember going back years and years later with my kids and sort of going, oh my God, that's where we took acid. And God, there was this police station right across from this bus shelter where we couldn't move.
Yep.
You wouldn't, it's probably the worst place in the world to take acid, in the sense that it's this tiny wee village, you know, tiny wee sort of people, and we stood out like a sore thumb. Like there was about 8 of us all just running around like loonies.
Yeah.
So it was things that, so the, you know, like Dum Dum, the album is just little snippets of our life between the ages of 18 and 22. And it all sounds quite exciting, but it wasn't.
And how often, you know, during that time did you and Eugene play live? And how were you received by like the people in the scene or your audiences?
Well, I've got a few stories like that. So Stephen definitely took us under his wing. We toured a little bit with the Pastels, and you know, I was so nervous, so all the time, because we never really rehearsed. And in the beginning, it was just Eugene and I. And I remember this one, and actually, I told John Robb this not that long ago, because he's quite friendly. He's really friendly with my partner. So John Robb was in a band called The Membranes, and we were playing in, I think in London or something. And so the Pastels went up and did their sound check. And then the Membranes got up and did their sound check. And the Membranes are like real punk band, did Mohicans and just like that. And I was like, I can't go up there and sing Molly's Lips. No. And he's like, we're just going to have to do it. And that's why we just ended up getting really drunk all the time. But anyway, we went up. It was like, twee, twee, kiss, kiss, Molly's Lips. And it was just like, oh, got off the stage. And John Robb came up and went, oh, in really a Manchester accent, which I'm not going to attempt to do. It was like, oh my God, that was brilliant. I really loved that. And we were like, really?
Okay.
That was nice. And then we had this thing about tweeness, and we really wanted to be anti-twee. So that's when we got Eugene's brother on board to play this weird drums that he would play. And he had a friend called James Seenan who played bass. And those two looked butch and macho, and they kind of beefed us up a wee bit. So, but I don't think, whenever we played, I don't think any of us played the same song on stage. You know, it was because we just never rehearsed. Yeah. So it was shambolic. And then we had our big moment, although we didn't realize it was our big moment. But the Jesus and Mary chain, I think they were playing in the Barrowlands, which is, you know, it's a massive, everyone wants to play the Barrowlands. And I don't know what happened, but we got this call saying, oh, they don't have a support band. Would the Vaselines do it? And we were like, okay, but we hadn't rehearsed. We arrived at the Barrowlands. We didn't have an amp. We just dragged this amp from the back, and we did this terrible sound check. It was awful. And we just thought, oh, fuck this. And we just went and got really drunk. We just went to the pub and was just like, so time to get on. The only thing I remember are people throwing things at us and us just throwing them back off the stage. And got off stage, or stumbled off stage. And Stephen Pastel came around. He was like, guys, you've blown it. You've made a right mess of things. And we were like on our backs, lying with laughter, and just like going, what have we blown? We've got nothing, nothing to blow. You know, it doesn't matter. You know, he was really pissed off with us because we'd really fucked it up. Yeah, but I mean,
was that sort of like because you and Eugene broke up, so the band broke up for a while, right? But was that sort of like the beginning of the end, or? Yeah,
I think in reality, the only reason Eugene and I in the end stayed together was because of the Vaselines, which we now refer to as our baby.
Oh, yeah.
I know, it's the Vaselines baby, and it's like every so often we have to talk about the baby.
Yeah. You have to take it out and show it off to the world.
That's right. I know. So when we reformed, Scott Patterson was on tour with us once in America, and Scott's funny. He's a really lovely guy, and if Eugene and I we always bicker about what set list is going to be. And then Scott would be like, Mom, Dad, don't fight. We're not fighting, so yeah, Eugene and I are really good friends now. It was a hard time, when you're with someone at 18, you do change. And, I think also at that age, you're doing something. I'm glad I was at college, because I think if music was the only thing I did, and all the disappointments that come with it, I think it can break you. It really can. And, we recorded Dum Dum, and it was like the coldest January ever. And we took the train through to Edinburgh every weekend to record this album in the coldest place ever. And it took a lot out of us. You just do it, but you don't realize at the time. And then remember, the album got pressed up, and then the label that was going to go out on everything went under. So there was always these attempts at doing something and then it not happening. We were supposed to play in Spain, which should have been a big thing, but that never happened. So it was this. By the time Eugene and I's relationship was over, I really felt I had not really progressed from any more than 3 chords. I was really, I had a lot of stage fright by then. Just the thought of going on stage and being a total nightmare.
Yeah.
And drinking far too much just to cover that up. So all in all, I think I was just glad that, I've got to cough again. After all, I think I was just glad it was over.
Yeah.
So we had literally been apart with the band for maybe about a year, and I was a school teacher at the time. Eugene phoned me up and he said, "Oh, there's this band from Seattle, and they really like us, and they asked if we would support them in Edinburgh." And I was like, excuse me, "Oh, well, okay, could we have a rehearsal then?" So we rehearsed for about half an hour in my flat, and then took ourselves off to Edinburgh. And I had that horrible feeling again. It was like, oh no. And I remember I said, "Eugene, you need to go over Jesus Wants Me for a Sunbeam. I can't remember how to play all those 3 chords. I just can't remember." We were sitting huddled in this corner trying to go over it, and then Kurt Cobain walks past, and I was like, oh my God. I didn't really know him, but I knew he was the band leader. I was like, oh God, he's going to think I'm a complete idiot. So everyone was just really shy. No one really spoke to each other. My younger sister came to the gig, and she'd only ever been to raves. So she was like, "What's everyone doing?" And standing holding a pint of beer, watching the band. And I was like, "Oh, this is what you do at a gig." She's like, "No one's dancing." And I was like, "Yeah, it's a gig. People just stand here." And she was like, "Oh my God, this is boring." So, it's just because by that time I was really into dance music, and we used to go to, my sister and I went to raves all the time, just had a blast. So to go back, I mean, I thought literally, I was really early 90s, I thought guitar music is dead. Little did I know. But it was, for me, it had held no interest. So watching this band and then watching people stage dive, I was like, what the heck is going on here? I was like, take me back to the rave. But
I read this, I read an interview that Eugene did maybe like 10 years ago, but he said like the only money that the Vaselines ever really made was from like Nirvana's kind of after their sort of endorsement. And he was like, that's how I was able to get a mortgage.
Yeah.
Is that like still the case? And how important was that sort of moment, not only for you as a band, the Vaselines, but for you as a musician, because you had other bands after that too?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the great things about Kurt Cobain and his legacy is that he was always promoting other bands. And up until then, there was always this tension between other bands, you know, vying to get that top spot. And I think Kurt Cobain had this really communal thing, like, yeah, you've heard us, but you haven't heard the Vaselines, or you haven't heard, you know, this band or the Butthole Surfers or whatever band he really loved. So he was a really good promoter of music that I think would have just gone underground and never materialized, actually. So yeah, Eugene and I joke about it in the sense that we say that the worst thing we ever did was actually put out a second album.
Oh.
we should have just stayed, you know, unknown.
Yeah.
You know, the first time we ever went to America, no one had ever seen us, you know, because this is pre-internet, pre-computers, really, you know. Nobody, you know, there was these weird black and white photographs of us. We were enigmas.
Yeah.
Not, you know, not anymore. And I think we should have stayed enigmas and never recorded anything else ever.
Yeah.
But yeah, thanks to Kurt Cobain and Nirvana. Yeah, I mean, people get the calculators out and tell me how much I'm worth, and I'm like, no, you've got it wrong. Remember, you have to live, you have to eat, you have to, you know. But Eugene has always been a musician. I mean, I teach yoga. You know, I couldn't sit back and live off the earnings of 3 songs. I mean, that's just insane. But what it did help me do was, you know, when I was a school teacher, in, I think my 7th year, I was like, this is killing me. I can't do it anymore. And this is before I got any royalties or anything, that I just decided I was going to leave the band, leave the job. I'd started to write with James Seenan, and Jonathan Poneman from Sub Pop phoned me up, and he was like, oh, we've heard this single that you've done with James Seenan, we really like it. Would you put an album out? And I was like, oh my God, yeah, okay. And so he paid for us to go over to Seattle. Met Chris Novoselic, I hadn't seen him since that dreadful gig that we played. Met his wife at the time. And Jonathan Poneman was acting really strange. And we thought we had a record deal with him. And then that never materialized. It was another disappointment. I'd left my job by this time thinking, well, I better buckle down and learn to play, you know, some some songs. And that never happened. And actually I left my job thinking that I was writing an album. But actually what I realized was I hated my job, and I was really glad I'd left it anyway. But I had this sort of sense of bereavement, even though you know, you create the structure in your life. But luckily at the time I was practicing yoga, and I remember going into my teacher's class one lunchtime, and she's like, what are you doing here? She knew that I was a school teacher, and she knew I would be working. And I said, I've left my job. And she said, welcome to our world. So it wasn't so much music that then took me in a direction, it was yoga. And I remember just going, I'm just going to practice yoga and everything will sort itself out. And it did. And James and I, the Sub Pop thing never ever happened. And James and I, we had a band together called Painkillers. And then I started to write these other songs, and he said, you know, they don't belong in our band. You should start another band. And I did. And James helped out for a wee bit playing bass, but then I got it was mainly women in the band. I got a friend, Vicky, who'd never played bass guitar before, but was very musical, and got her on to play bass, and we got a drummer. And before we knew it, I got my younger sister, she did vocals, and we had this band called Suckle, and brought out an album on Chemical Underground Records. And it was just, I mean, I think the sound is really ahead of its time.
Yeah.
And then, you know, we toured. I remember we did a tour with Teenage Fan Club. They really liked us. And
yeah, you guys did like 6 albums, right? 6 or 7 with Suckle. You?
Sorry?
Suckle, didn't you did like 6 albums with them, I think?
No, one.
Oh, it was only one?
one album. It's called Suckle Against Nurture.
Yeah.
And then we did an EP, and then
maybe I'm thinking. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Then we split up, and I had just had my first son at that point, and my friend who was really had her own studio, and we met via playing together with her band and my band. And she's like, "I'll get you." She lived in Manchester. "Come down to Manchester and write your next album." So I had Lucas and my partner at the time. We all went down. It was a resident. You shared her studio in her house, so he would look after Lucas, and I would go and record all these other songs that I had that were supposed to come out on the Suckle album, which it didn't happen because there was just a wee bit of, I don't know, musical differences. I don't really know, but Chemical Underground just wanted, they were just like, well, we'll just leave this second album for a bit. So Lucas was quite young, so I recorded this album called Sunny Moon, and just did it all myself. I mean, I'm not a musician, but I pulled down some people from the music school, and they came and played piano and whatever. And and this album came out, nobody really listened to it. And then I think last year someone wanted to re-release it on vinyl for Record Store Day, put out 500 copies of it, and I was like, why?
Oh, great. I missed it.
Why would you do that? That was years ago. But actually, I was like, why not? As my usual thing, like, if you want. But he sold them all. He and I was like, oh, well done. So
well done.
Then
I can imagine. That's really funny.
And actually, after that, I had another son, and then I had my daughter, and then Eugene. Oh no, Eugene. When we played together 2 solo shows, and my friend who'd helped me make Sunny Moon, she was like, "You guys should reform." And so what we did in these solo shows is we did a couple of acoustic Vaseline songs, and people loved them. And then we were asked to do this charity thing, and Eugene said, I'm fed up doing acoustic stuff. I'm going to ask Stevie Jackson and some of the other guys from Bell and Sebastian. They're on a sabbatical. We'll ask if they'll do our backing band, and I was like, we'll give it a go. And I remember walking into this rehearsal room with all these people and going, oh man, and they knew all the songs, and these are really good musicians. And I was like, oh my God, what am I doing? But honestly, I came out of that rehearsal room. I had never felt so good in my entire life. It was a total buzz. And then we just rehearsed. We played this charity gig and then went off to New York. I'd never been to New York. Played 2 shows in New York and people loved it. I had no idea that people loved us so much. I had no clue. I was just always really embarrassed about it. So if people asked me, sometimes a yoga student would come and go, were you in that band? And I was like, oh yeah, sorry.
Oh yeah, sorry.
So I had no idea that people loved it. So it was a real kind of like, oh. And then we just kept getting asked to play shows. So we just kept doing them, and by that point I felt more confident playing guitar because I'd played obviously a lot with my other bands, but also I think with yoga I just had that inner confidence. There's just something a change. I'd been older as well. By that point I was in my 40s. 40s are the best, and I just thought actually this is good. But we couldn't do an awful lot because obviously my kids were really young at the time, but just had a laugh really.
Yeah, I want to ask you because it's nice to hear that the 40s are the best, because I turned 40 and I'm like, it feels pretty good.
It's great.
Like kind of psyched about it, but
I think I was 42 when the Vaselines started up again. And that was it. Honestly, I really had a total blast.
Yeah.
You don't look like you're in your 40s.
Another compliment. I'm going to put that next to the hot lesbian Spencer.
Mom.
But I guess I'm just wondering, so at this point you have 3 kids, you have a partner, so you have like this whole life. You're teaching yoga. Were you teaching yoga at that point?
Yep.
And then how did you just how did you manage kind of being in a working band again, and now being like a mom and a wife and being a business owner?
I get up early.
Yeah.
I get up early, and I was in my 40s, so I actually had a lot of energy, and I was bored with just being a mum, and it was great just to have this other thing, and I'd forgotten how much I loved it.
Yeah.
And it's like a tap turning on. For me, it's I don't crave to do music, but when I do it, I really enjoy it, and then I don't do it for ages. It's funny, I just.
Yeah.
But it was just really felt like the right time, the right thing. And actually everyone in the band was really accommodating to my weird hours when I could rehearse.
Yeah.
So that really helped as well.
And just, I might be assuming things about you because you're a yoga instructor, like a yogi. But so you said that you guys used to drink a lot and do a lot of drugs, and obviously that's sort of part of the kind of like rock and roll narrative, and especially in the 80s and 90s there were just like a lot of drugs and alcohol. How did you sort of survive or bypass like the kind of downfall that?
Well, I think actually practicing yoga, and I remember saying to my yoga teacher, I think I smoked at the time, and I was like, I wish I could stop smoking. And she said, smoking will give you up, so don't worry about it. And I remember going on a yoga retreat, and I cycle a lot, and I'd cycle a mile straight up this hill. And this was after like a 2-hour yoga practice.
Yeah.
And it was beautiful, see by the sun, see everything. And I got up to the top of this hill, and I could feel my lungs just about evaporate. And I was just like, I can't ever smoke again. Don't want to smoke again. And that was it. Because I tried loads of times to stop. And then I thought, well, what are my triggers for smoking? Alcohol, coffee. So all in one day, I stopped drinking, and drinking coffee as well. And I loved coffee. I know. And I do drink coffee now, actually. Not like the way I used to, but, I'll have it now 3 times a week, and I really enjoy it. But and alcohol, I can take it or leave it. I'll have it sometimes. So I think that's quite a good place to be, because in the past I was that person. If I opened a bottle of wine, I had to drink that bottle of wine, and a friend of mine, she stopped smoking quite recently, but she said, oh, I can have a few cigarettes at the weekend. And I'm like, I really admire that, because I couldn't do that. If I lit one cigarette, that would be me again, even though, I've not smoked for 30 years or whatever. But so I think actually, I think also what I realized is you can feel really, really good just by practicing yoga, or getting enough sleep, or being out in the sunshine. There are other ways to get high, and I think I've tapped into that through the yoga practice. I had no idea you could feel that good just by doing good things. Just no idea. You always thought you needed a pint of cider or whatever. Our refined drink was cider and vodka together. It was pretty lethal. So the kind of drop off when I went on tour. I would had a wee thing. We would have a glass of wine before we went on stage, and that was always enough for me. And when I came off stage, I always just wanted to go to the hotel room. The guys would be partying, and I'd be like, oh, I want to get up early so I can practice before we go on the road again. So so yoga is a really great anchor, actually.
That's really funny, because it just seems like, from an outsider's perspective, like the sort of yoga healthy lifestyle is just not conducive at all to the.
Well, it's funny because I trained as a naturopath, so I really pissed the boys off on tour, because they would be having something to eat, and I'd be like, health giving or health taking, and they go, oh, shut up.
Oh, I love it. Are you Well, I mean, this is no judgment. I'm just wondering, are you like vegan or vegetarian or anything?
Well, I was vegan for a long time. And then when I was pregnant with my second son, I was really craving chicken. And it was like a Tom and Jerry cartoon. I was just like, oh my God. And my head said no, but my body was like, chicken, chicken, chicken. And I remember one day being in a shop and I bought some fish. I thought, I'll have some fish. That'll curb that absolute need. And I know every pregnancy I was always really sick. So I was like, I got it nailed in the second pregnancy, because in the first one I was like, I can't eat, which meant that you ended up being sicker. So in this was like, I'll just make myself eat. And I had this fish and I was like, oh my God, that's the best I have felt in this pregnancy. So I do eat fish. And now I just say, rather than put myself in a box, I just say I like to eat healthy food. That's what I'm drawn towards.
Yeah, that's good.
So yeah.
I'm going to cut this part out of the interview, but I might need you to help me. So I'm like a total, like I've been clean and sober for like 14 years. I'm vegan, you know, I eat pretty healthy, I exercise, but I have an addict personality. So I started smoking again at like the beginning of the pandemic. I had one, right? And I'm like, I'm bored. I don't see anyone. I'm locked in my apartment. And then it's just, I should have known, because then that's led to, I'm like, I'll keep them at my rehearsal space and have one a day. Then I'm like, I'll just move them to my car and then I'll go outside and I'll have two a day. And then it just escalated to the, like, I don't want to be a 40-year-old smoker. Now I'm like doing yoga, but I thought that would help, but I'm still smoking. I don't know. Is there just a part of me that still like hates myself or something?
I think, I'm a smoker. But
How?
No, I am a smoker. You know, I don't smoke.
Yeah.
I wouldn't smoke. So when I was younger, I smoked joints, and I think it wasn't the cannabis that I wanted, it was the tobacco, which I realized. And it was like a really stressful time. I started smoking cigarettes, was when I started teaching. And I remember being in this classroom going, what am I doing? And then on the way into work the next day, I bought a packet of cigarettes. And I smoked the whole time I was a school teacher. And then once I stopped being a teacher, it took a few months, but then it stopped. So I think that this pandemic has, you know, it's caused a lot of stress in people. And I think what you've probably done is actually quite a good thing. You've given yourself a crutch to help you through it. And once, you know, the anxiety levels drop a little bit, your need for that crutch will minimize. But I always say the more I focused on trying to stop, the more I smoked.
I know.
And then
that's what I've been doing, because I'm like, I'm going to quit tomorrow. Like I set a date and then I just like smoke more before the date comes.
Exactly. So like I said, it will let you go. And I think that's the best way to deal with it. And make healthy choices as well. You know, just go for that. I've been outdoor swimming a lot, and it's cold in Scotland, but I've been doing it since March. And you do things that really vitalize you. And like I did with that yoga retreat, and I looked at the cigarette and I was like, this isn't serving me anymore. But for the moment, it's serving you, because actually we've all gone in, I think, had quite a lot of trauma in the last year. And I think, I don't know if you know the work of Gabor Mate, but he talks about addicts. And he says addicts, they've actually done a really good thing for themselves. They've had a trauma and they've dealt with that by medicating on whatever it is that you're drawn to. And it served them to help them recover from that trauma. And so I think actually, you'd rather than chastise yourself over it, admit it that addict. I have got a very addictive personality. Luckily, I've managed to channel it into more, healthy pursuits. But I don't think you should give yourself a hard time on it. But I think, you know, it will leave you. And tell me when it happens.
I know. I'm just like ready for it to leave me, because you know, I don't really feel good. You know, I can like feel it in my So at that point, I'm like, why am I still doing this? Because
but also I remember thinking when I was in school, that cigarette was like the wardrobe. It was like a metaphysical cloud that went round me to hide me as well. So I think there's a lot of really complex issues around addiction, and I think the more we, like, my brother was an alcoholic and he died, and you know, it was like, well, it's his own fault, you know, he was an alcoholic, blah blah, and it's like, well, actually it's way more complex than that. Way more complex. And I think we have to be kind and loving to ourselves, and maybe that cigarette is your act of kindness to yourself.
Yeah, maybe.
You know, it's just so I don't know. I think the more, and of course that the more we stress out about trying to stop, the more stressed out we are, and then we want to smoke. I mean, I would have a cigarette in every finger if I could.
Oh yeah, me too. Yeah, constantly. Yep.
And I said to the kids, I said, whatever you do, don't start smoking because it's so addictive. I don't know, there was a film that came out in the 90s, and it was about the tobacco industry. And if you watch that, you'll be sick to the core, because they have a level of some chemical in the cigarette that makes you addictive. So it's kind of like it makes you go for that X-Men. And honestly, I watched that film, I was so angry. It was like an exposé kind of thing. Who was in it? The guy that was Gladiator. He was in it. It's a brilliant film.
Thank you for smoking. Thank you for smoking. Is that what it was called?
I don't think so. I don't think.
No, I know what you're talking about. Russell Crowe.
Yeah.
Yes, that disgusted.
Watch that, because see, when your intellect understands what's going on.
Yeah.
And it's just, for me, I'm a slave to this. You know, if I was around my family who hated smoking, I would be panicky because I'd want to leave and have a cigarette, you know? But
same. That's why I said I can't have this in the interview, because I come from like a very clean living, non-smoking family too. So it stresses me out.
Which actually and my sister, my older sister, was more like my mum, and she was more kind of horrified. But actually, when I sort of fessed up, I mean, of course they knew I smoked, because you can, you know, but I was like, no, this is something I'm dealing with. And I think be kind to yourself about it, and then actually it will not have that prominence. So say somebody like me stopped smoking, but you can't tolerate someone smoking around them, or an ashtray, they're still addicted, aren't they? Or they say, like, that's me 5 years non-smoking, they're still in that addiction mode. If I could get to the stage where I could smoke a cigarette and not think I need now to run out and buy a pack of 10, I would do it to prove to myself that I could do it, but I'm not going there. I'll drink alcohol again, and I thought as soon as I started to drink alcohol, I'd be smoking, but it hasn't. I've managed to disassociate those things.
Yeah.
Loved smoking. Loved it.
Yeah, it's fun. It's relaxing.
Yeah. So there's actually lots of merit in it.
Yeah.
Like if you go way, way back to the 50s, you'll see that. You'll see all these adverts for smoking. And I remember as a wee girl going into the doctor's surgery, and you couldn't see the doctor for the smoke. He just chain smoked. So actually smoking isn't the terrible thing that it's portrayed as now. It was a good thing.
Yeah. Well, did you ever watch that documentary about Edward Bernays, Sigmund Freud's nephew, how he was in charge of basically getting American women to start smoking after World War? Yeah. So just like the huge kind of propaganda campaign that made
like what's happening now.
Yeah. And now the campaigns are like to get people to quit, but then the cigarette companies own all of the, you know, the gum and the e-cigs and everything. So
and I wondered about because my friend went on to use the vapes.
Yeah.
I think I'd rather have a cigarette than a vape. Personally.
Oh yeah. I've done both, and cigarettes win. But sorry about the tangent. I was just like, maybe
no, it's a great tangent.
Yogi can help me quit smoking.
I tell you what happened as well. I think I was in America and I'd stopped smoking. I'd gone over for the summer. I'd met on this retreat that I went in Cornwall. I met this yoga teacher who was from South Lake Tahoe, and he invited me over. And of course, all my friends were like, "Oh, go!" And I was like, "I'm just going." But on the way, I went via Seattle and met up with Chris, Novoselic, and one of his friends was taking me around Seattle, and he had a cigarette, and I was like, could I have a cigarette? I'm trying to stop, but just seeing you with that cigarette, I really want one. He was like, oh, I don't want to give you one if you're trying to quit, blah, blah, blah. I was, just give me one. So he gave me one. It was one of those Native American ones.
American Spirit.
This is what did it. So I smoked a bit of it, and I actually, luckily we were getting back to where I was staying, and I had a complete whitey on this cigarette. You know, I just felt so sick. And that was actually a really good thing. So after that, every time I thought about having a cigarette, I was just like, oh, I'm going to be sick, because I remembered this cigarette it was in a car as well, and I always get car sick. So this combination of being in a car and smoking this cigarette, it was a good thing. So
magic. See, that's a good like aversion therapy.
Yeah, exactly. But it took, this didn't all happen overnight. This was over a period of about 6 months.
Yeah.
Well, I said to my kids, whatever you do, don't start smoking.
Yeah, it's the worst.
My son now smokes, and I was just like, okay. I said, but that, it's hard to give up. And we went out for the day and went out into the countryside, and we went to a pub afterwards, and he rolled up a cigarette, and I'm like, well, it's up to you, because if I say don't do that, he'll smoke more. So it's just like, well, whatever.
Yeah. Do your kids think you're cool? Like, do they think it's cool that you were in
the son that I was talking about? I think his friends at school used to tease him and used to say that he was the son of Kurt Cobain. So he did not think mum was cool at all. And then it started to change a wee bit, and he would go to this pub in Glasgow that would serve kids who were underage. It was well known. And he was there one night, and he was outside, obviously smoking a cigarette, but he didn't tell me that bit. And there was this guy, really drunk guy, and he was like, there's really great bands in Glasgow there, and rhymed off quite a few Glasgow bands. And then there's the Vaselines. And Lucas went, that's my mum and the Vaselines. And the guy was like, no way. So then Lucas sort of started to get a wee bit of social currency out of me. Yeah. And then his pal came around. He said that I was flirting with his pal, and I wasn't. But it was one New Year, and his wee friend came around, and he was like, right. His wee friend was like, did you sleep with Kurt Cobain? I said, if only. No, I didn't. Yeah. That was a time in history that I wish I could go back to, but no, that didn't happen.
It's too bad.
And he was really genuine. He really thought that this had happened in his head. I was like, sorry, no. Please delete this bit.
Yeah. Oh no, can I leave it? It's really cute. I never even knew that was a rumor. I'd never heard that before.
This is a Glasgow rumor by with your boys at Lucas's school.
Okay, all right. I'm like, I had never even.
No, it didn't happen. It never. No one else would have thought that.
Yeah.
It's just that Lucas does look a wee bit like Kurt Cobain.
Oh, does he? It's cute. Well,
and also reality.
It's great that he's good looking. Then that he must be adorable. Good looking guy.
Then it's because Lucas's dad once said to me, do you know, people think I look like Bjorn from ABBA. And I said, that's really funny you're saying that, because my brother used to always say that I look like Bjorn from ABBA. So and Lucas, my son, looks a bit like Bjorn from ABBA.
Oh, that's cute. Oh my God. I'm crossing off some things I already asked you. I haven't been keeping up with my notes. I do want to not speaking of Bjorn from ABBA, but Sex with an X, which, because we live in this like time warp now, it actually was quite a while ago that you guys did that, like 11 years ago. what made you decide to go back and like record an album as the Vaselines, and how was that experience, you know, so many years later?
So we kind of ran out of songs to play. And then one day Eugene and I were like, this is really embarrassing. Every time we play a gig, we're just playing Dum Dum. And although that was quite good because we'd never toured Dum Dum. So for a while it was really good and it felt really new. But then we kept getting asked to play shows and we just thought, and then Eugene said, you know, I've got a few songs. Maybe it'd be a good idea to record them. So we did that. And then we kind of just sort of recorded it in my friend's studio, and we got Jamie Watson, who had done the original engineering, sort of producing for Dum Dum. He was up for helping us with it, and we just thought, right, let's just see what happens. So we put this album together, and it was quite intense doing it. And it was a bit weird, but then we kind of gave it to Tony at Sub Pop, and he loved it. And he wanted to put it out. We still owe them a gazillion amount of money for it. So that's why V for Vaselines didn't come out on Sub Pop. So no one bought it. That's what at that point we said, God, we should never have made a second album, you know.
Oh, I bought it.
Oh well, you and a few more, but it wasn't. Yeah, it didn't sell well at all. Not up to, you know, Sub Pop expectations, I guess. And
well, it's probably harder too, because it's like it's a totally different climate with people just like listening to stuff online and streaming things on. You don't have to buy things anymore.
No, and actually, it was. I think, on hindsight, I really liked that album. I think some of the songs could come out. It was a wee bit long, and I think actually we needed a wee bit more help just shaving stuff off the sides of it. But I'm really actually more happy with V for Vaseline. But I did go back to Sex with an Ex. I do, if I've got a gig to do, which is not happening at the moment, but I would go back and listen, and sometimes I think, oh God, actually maybe it's going to take another 20 years for people to like that album, because Dum Dum was, you know, took years for people to get onto that. And I think that's just the way it is with music. I'm the same, you know, sometimes I'll hear something and I go, oh my God, I can't believe how good that is. And it was recorded 30 odd years ago. I don't know. Andrew, my partner, he said, listen to this. I can't remember the name of it. It's this German woman, and she recorded stuff at home, and there's her grandchildren that have put it out, and it's amazing. If you want, I'll find out. It's on my phone. But it's kind of folky, but it's just amazing. And you know, and I think now there's another woman who's in her 80s, which is I think quite a significant time. She was a folk singer way back in the 60s, lost her voice, had some sort of trauma, and is re-emerged as this sort of singer, and she's collaborating with really with sort of experimental musicians, but the folky essence hasn't gone, and I can't remember her name either because I'm terrible with names. I'll find out and I'll email it to you.
Very interesting.
But I think actually music, I mean, you know, so like folk singers in Scotland, or just folk singers in general, it can take years and years for that to filtrate. And also, I mean, there's just, you know, it's an ear assault. I don't really listen to music that often. Maybe I'm driving and I'll maybe put on a playlist or something. I'm much more interested in listening to podcasts and stuff like that. But I think there is so much music. It's sometimes difficult to hear, but every now and then I'll hear something and I'll go, wow, I love that. You know, never remember the name of it, but you know, but it can just take a long time. And I think actually Spotify and all these things make it harder because there's just so much choice. So rather than make a choice, I'll not bother. And all my CDs are in a cupboard, so nothing's accessible actually.
And just before like the last few ending questions, I do want to know, you've mentioned a lot of disappointments, like industry sort of disappointments, and you did start your own record label at one point, Rosary. But just in general, kind of what are your feelings about record labels, the sort of music industry, and what part did that play in you deciding to start your own label and put out your own music?
Well, I think actually we made this great album called V for Vaselines, but Sub Pop wouldn't pick it up because we owed them so much money from Sex with an X, and we couldn't. No label would pick it up, and I think, you know, the heady days of sorry, Andrew, I'm doing the heady days of Scottish chips, the heady days of, you know, people making masses of money out of music have long gone. So I think we just thought, do you know what, we'll put this out ourselves. And we had a really good manager, Frank McDonald, who's the drummer of the Teenage Fan Club. He was our manager at the time. We thought it was a good thing to do, because otherwise I think that album would have just faded away. Little did we know that like 6 months down the line, Stuart Braithwaite from Mogwai said, oh, I really like that album. We would have put it out on Rocksteady, but by that point we had set the motions of putting the album out ourselves, because, you know, it's like you're so fired up, you just want to do something. And I think perceptually, when you put your record out yourself, people think either of two things: either that's brilliant, you've done that yourself off your own bat, or that's really stupid, you should have gone, you know, there's, you know, you've got the kudos of a label, whatever, behind you. But actually, I'm really glad that we did it ourselves. And I think for musicians now, the only thing we can hope for is the advert or the video game or something like that. And yeah, and I think if you own the rights to that record or that music, then if something comes along in publishing, then you get the lion's share. You've cut out the middleman. So yeah, it was quite difficult, because we paid for that ourselves, and, you know, often this is why you go via a label, because they can maybe give you some money for it. But, you know, so we put it out. We had a Vaselines account. We used that. We got some Creative Scotland money to help us record it, and then we've never really made the money back. But we did get an advert a couple of years ago for avocados. And they used, I was like, brilliant. And they used a song from V for Vaselines, I think, which was great, because it was like, well, that's our song. And actually we got the money for that, which was just, so we gift from God.
Yeah. Wow. Avocados too. It's like, if you're gonna like capitalize on something, it might as well be like a fruit or a vegetable, right? That does it, like avocado. That's,
I know. And then there was no sort of angst of whether it was, you know, okay, although some people would say, don't you eat avocados because they're ruining the forest.
Yeah, that's true. But it's not like, you know, iPhone or something.
Well, exactly. I would see, to be honest, I was just like, give us the money and I'll take it. I don't care. So, you know, there used to be what we would call in Glasgow the indie police. And if you stepped outside of your what the indie police thought was cool, you were stuffed. But I think everyone knows, musicians, we're way down there on the pecking order of getting paid. You know, with Spotify is, on one hand, you can hear anything you want, but it's strangled music as well. You can't, you know, musicians are doing it now because they love it. But, you know, I always say to any upcoming musician, make sure you have another job that you really like.
And that's been your experience pretty much, like, for your whole life doing music, that you've always had another plan, something to fall back on, or
and that's probably what took me into teacher training college. It was like, there's no way I'll make money from being an actress or a musician. Probably made more money from music than anything, but it's probably the thing that I've done, you know, spent least time on. I'll spend hours practicing yoga, but I've got a gig, and my daughter, she's really musical actually, so she's going to play keyboards at this, just a solo, well, it's supposed to be solo, but I've got her to play keyboards for me. And she's been going out busking and like making 40 quid in an hour, and you're just, I think I'm going to give up teaching yoga and just go out busking with her. Great, she really is. So
I've always admired that that trait in other people. Like I've never had that, being able to just go on the street and be like, give me my, I'm like you, I'm just like, yeah, I was in this band, sorry. Like just everything. I just find everything so embarrassing. And then the older I get, I'm like, why?
I know.
Next generation, like daughter, I'm like, good for you guys.
All those missed opportunities, never again. So any opportunity, I grab it.
Yeah.
And use it to whatever I want. That's the benefit of getting older, I think. You know, you just think, well, why not?
Yeah.
How old are you now? Why?
How old are you now?
55.
What? Yeah. Pretty hot too, Frances.
Sorry,
I've
been up since 5 this morning, taught a yoga class, done yoga, then went out swimming. I've been in a scabby loch, then I've been out in the garden, and now look. So I'm not even dressed for the occasion.
Oh, I have sweatpants on.
Oh, good.
I mean, you just can't see it, but yeah, I did. I put a little concealer on, a little eyeliner, but I never.
It's been so long since I've worn makeup. I can't even find it.
I don't anymore, really. But I was like,
I should put it somewhere. I actually am having an old Joe Biden moment. I can't find it.
Oh yeah, lucky us over here.
I know. Isn't he doing well?
Yep, everything's going great.
Are you a musician as well?
Yeah, luckily I found a nice balance where I can just do it, and it's like enjoyable and fun. So I play drums.
Send me a link to your stuff, because it's been really lovely chatting to you, and it'd be nice to hear.
Oh, yeah, I don't know if you'll like it, but I'll send it to you. See, I only play drums now, so I'm like, sure, I'll send it to you.
We need a drummer. We need a drummer. Come to Glasgow.
I will drum with you. Please hire me. Okay.
Oh my God, that's Pippin's playing keyboards. I'm like, we either need a drummer or someone that can you know program a drum machine. We need something. But
I can do both.
Everything.
So I said I can do both of those things.
Oh,
so right. And now we've got GarageBand. I've been doing music, distance with people like on the West Coast with Garage, like the whole pandemic, just to keep kind of like collaborating and being creative.
Right.
But, we're finally starting to. I have a rehearsal space, but we haven't played together in like over a year. So we just started. We've like practiced once. It's really bad. So we're practicing again on Sunday. I'm like, how do we forget every song that we've ever played? But I guess it's been a while. But yeah, I'll drum anytime.
Brilliant. That's experience. Because so it's just been Pippin and I, and Eugene doesn't want to play any shows, and I don't know why, but the whole kind of pandemic thing, I don't get scared about getting sick, because I think I'll look after myself, and and from a naturopathic point of view, being ill is a good thing. It's not a bad thing, depending on how you get out of it. So I'm always, when I bumped into Eugene, and there's a wee bit of fear there, and it's like, oh God, I think I annoy people quite a lot, because I'm like, oh, what are you scared about?
Yeah. I'm not worried about myself. I'm really worried about like getting an old person sick, or someone, like, I don't know. That's what makes me nervous. And like talking to Marianne today, it was like a caregiver that gave her COVID, and then she almost died. And
wow.
I'm like, I just don't want to get anyone else sick, but I feel pretty, I forgot like my mask today when I went to drop my car. I was like, oh my God, I haven't done anything though. I've been here, seen the same 2 people for a year and a half. Exactly. My dog. Exactly. So I feel
my mom had a great saying, which was, you won't die of dirt.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's resonated with me through the years of being in the mucky loch today. The water, I won't die of dirt.
Yeah, I know.
You need it. You need to be amongst a bit of dirt and whatever. But
okay. So before, I do have to. I gotta let you go. But I have to do like
You need to get your car.
I do. I need to get my car. That's the only reason. But we can just like talk and stay in touch, I hope, anyway.
Yes,
I really like it.
definitely.
Yeah. Okay, last few questions, and you might think that these are ridiculous. I asked everybody, how do you feel about, I feel like I know what you're going to say. How do you feel about your role in and contribution to rock history as a whole?
Oh.
Like,
well, in terms of if I can do it, anyone can do it, then that's not a bad legacy.
That's a great answer. Love it. I love it. Okay. All right, this one's a little gendery. What are your thoughts on the visibility of women in rock history in general? Is there a gender discrepancy? Is it not an issue? Has it gotten better or worse since you started?
I remember I read Kim Gordon's biography, and it was I can't remember the name of it, but she
Girl
always
in the
got
Band.
Girl in the Band. That's
Girl in the
it.
Band, yeah.
And I think she got hacked off from people always said, "What's it like playing bass?" And she was like, "You never ask a guy that question, so why are you asking me that?" I think it's something that, especially when I was younger, I was really aware of, that I wanted to make sure that I wasn't just the girl in the band or the girl doing back vocals. I think it's up to the individual women to just put their foot forward. And I think now, I don't, maybe somebody can correct me, but it's never held me back.
Yeah.
So if you want something, go and do it. But don't blame it on your sex. Oh, I can't do that because I'm a woman. Women can do different things to men. You can do the same, but I don't think I've ever got a foot up because I'm a woman. And equally, I've never been held back because I'm a woman. I know other women have different experiences, but mine has been pretty positive.
Okay, boom, check that one. What are you most proud of personally and or professionally?
Ooh, that's a hard one. I know. Well, at the moment, I'm pretty proud that I've got on my astrology course, but yeah, it's a sort of a professional step in another direction. What was the other question? What I'm proud of?
Yeah, in your personal life or in your professional
life. That I've managed to survive this long and actually feel healthier now than I did when I was in my 20s. I think that's quite a good thing.
And last, just, is there anything that I haven't asked that you wished I had asked, or anything that you want to add?
I think it's been a very relaxed and enjoyable conversation, and that's
fun, isn't it?
Yeah,
I tell people, I'm like, no, it's fun. We usually have a good time.
Yeah, no, you're very good. I was just thinking, you must have Mercury really well placed in your chart.
See, that's what I need you to help me with. I'm not sure like what house it's in or where it's placed, but my Mercury is also in Gemini, so
you're mutable. I was actually called Miss Mutable in my astrology course because I've got Mercury in Gemini as well.
Interesting. Okay. Well, I thought that was funny because you don't really remind me of like a Cancer. I don't know. I know that's just the sun sign, but I would not have guessed Cancer.
I think the Taurine ascendant, I've got a long neck.
Yeah.
You can either look completely like a bull or hopefully not or Bjorn. I do.
Yeah.
That concludes this episode of the Women of Rock Oral History Project podcast. This video was also recorded over Zoom, so you can see the interview in video form on our YouTube channel and on the Women of Rock Oral History Project website. Please follow Women of Rock Oral History Project on Instagram and Twitter at Women of Rock OHP, as well as on the Facebook. If you can donate, you can do so year-round through the website. Just check out social media. Every time I make a post, there's a little donate button on Facebook. You are the people who keep this project going, and I appreciate it. Until next time.